All right, if you're building anything in the AI space right now, you know that feeling, right? The excitement is everywhere. But here's the thing, there's a massive challenge hiding just under the surface, a potential crash for a ton of the apps we're seeing pop up. So in this explainer, we're going to dive into exactly what that is, and more importantly, how you can build something that actually lasts.
You know, this quote, it just gets right to the heart of the whole problem. The truth is, a huge number of these so-called AI apps, they're really just thin skins, a pretty face slapped on top of ChatGPT or Claude. And look, it's a super tempting shortcut, I get it, but it's also a massive trap.
And that trap leads directly to this next question. We see it all the time, right? An app launches, it gets a ton of buzz, everyone's trying it out, and then crickets. The engagement just fizzles out. So why does that happen? Why do they quietly plateau after such a great start? Well, that is the central mystery we're going to solve today.
Okay, let's put a name to this. Let's talk about the coming LLM app crash. See, that initial wave of hype, it's super deceiving, because what it's really doing is hiding a foundation that's, well, incredibly shaky.
Okay, so here's the core fundamental issue. The LLM itself doesn't matter if it's from OpenAI, Anthropic, Google, whoever, it's a commodity. It's an absolutely incredible tool for sure, but it's a tool that everyone has access to. And that means if the model is your main selling point, you don't really have a unique defensible advantage. What you have is a dependency on someone else's tech.
And that leads directly to this problem. If your whole app is basically ChatGPT for lawyers or ChatGPT for marketers, all you've really built is a clever prompt with a nice UI, you have zero moat, there's nothing stopping someone else from copying you, and worse, your users can, and trust me, they will, eventually just bypass you and go straight to the source themselves.
So this fundamental weakness, it doesn't just stay a theory. Sooner or later, developers run headfirst into what we're calling the AI wall. And this wall, it's not just one single thing. It's a whole series of painful, tangled-up failures that pretty much guarantees these simple apps never become real, robust products.
It usually starts with something we can call fancy text box syndrome. You know the type. The app looks slick, the UI is beautiful, it's easy to try out, but it doesn't actually plug into a real workflow. It's just a fancy text box. It's a detached tool. And you know what happens to detached tools? They get forgotten. They get abandoned. So, the first brick in that wall you're going to hit, it's the context wall. Now, a really common way to give an LLM some specific knowledge is using a technique called retrieval augmented generation, or RAG for short. But the basic, naive version of RAG, where you basically just dump a bunch of documents into a vector database, it has a huge, huge flaw. It looks amazing in a simple demo, but the second your data gets complicated or your user queries get nuanced, the quality just plummets. You start getting irrelevant junk, missed information, and those dreaded, super frustrating hallucinations.
Okay, so you see that problem and you try to fix it, right? You think, okay, I'll just throw more tokens at it, bigger context window, and bam, you've just smashed into the second wall, the cost wall. Every tiny little improvement in quality sends your API bills through the roof and makes the app slower. You get caught in this awful trap where your costs are growing way, way faster than the actual value you're giving to your users.
And that brings us to the final, and honestly the most dangerous wall of all, the trust wall. See, most teams, they test their app based on a handful of perfect prompts, the ones that make it look amazing in a demo. But out in the real world, without serious systematic evaluation and feedback loops, the product is just brittle. It breaks in all these weird, unexpected ways. And once you lose your users' trust, good luck ever getting that back. It's almost impossible.
So, okay, we've got the context wall, the cost wall, the trust wall. They all seem like different problems. But what if I told you they all stem from one single underlying strategic mistake? Let's dig into the real reason these apps are failing. This right here. This is it. This is the big aha moment for anyone building in this space. You have got to stop thinking about the LLM as the product. It's not the star of the show. The apps that are going to win, the ones that will last, treat the LLM as just one component. A really powerful component, sure, but just one piece inside a much bigger workflow engine that you control.
So let's really spell this out. Let's compare the old model versus this new model. On one side, you've got the old model, the fancy text box, which is all about generic chat. And on the other, you have the new model, the owned workflow. The focus completely shifts away from just having a conversation to actually getting a specific, real-world task done.
So what do these winning products actually do differently? Well, for starters, they're not just about a clever prompt. They're anchored on proprietary data nobody else has. They use tools, APIs, databases, to actually interact with the outside world. They have guardrails and business rules built in to make them reliable. And, this is so important, they have robust user feedback loops to get smarter over time.
Okay, so this naturally leads us to the solution. If you want to build these durable, long-lasting apps, you have to move past simple one-and-done prompts. You need to start thinking about building what are called agentic systems.
So what on earth is an agentic system? What does that even mean? Well, instead of just taking an input and spitting out an output, it works in a loop, a continuous cycle. First, it plans. It breaks a big task down into smaller steps. Then it acts. It uses its tools, it retrieves data. Next, it observes what happened. And finally, it refines its plan based on that result and does it all over again until the job is done. It's just a much, much smarter way to tackle complex problems.
So here's the key takeaway on this. You're not building a single all-powerful chatbot. You're building a team of specialists. Think of it like an assembly line. You might have one agent that's just a planner. Its only job is to break down the task. Then you have a retriever agent that's an expert at finding the right data. And maybe you have a verifier agent at the end to double-check the final answer. They all work together to get the job done right.
All right, so I know this all sounds great in theory, but the big question is, how do you actually put this into practice? Let's get into our final section here and lay out a real, actionable playbook for building these LLM 2.0 apps.
It really boils down to 4 key strategic moves to avoid hitting that wall. First off, don't try to boil the ocean. Pick one specific, high-value workflow and nail it. Second, and do this first, build your valuation harness before you even start messing with prompts. You have to know what good looks like from day one. Third, this is where you should be investing your time and money, in your data pipelines and your custom tools. That's your moat. And finally, never forget that core lesson. The LLM is infrastructure. It's a utility. It is not the product.
I want to leave you with this quote because, honestly, it just wraps up this entire strategic shift perfectly. Your product isn't the LLM. Your product is the workflow, it's the data, and it's the trust that you build. All of it wrapped around that commodity LLM at the core.
So I'll leave you with this one last question to chew on. Take a hard look at what you're building or maybe what you're thinking about building. Is it just another fancy text box that's destined to smash into that wall? Or are you actually architecting a real business asset, something that's built for this new LLM 2.0 world? The choice, really, is yours. Thanks for tuning in.